Hello, I'm Alex, and I play as the character Zidris on our podcast Roll for Distraction. The game takes place in a version of the Forgotten Realms that our DM John and I have traded back and forth for over 4 years now, and we make a lot of references to our old games on the podcast, so today I'm going to walk everyone through our entire history. I won't be covering the actual history of the Forgotten Realms, there's plenty of other places out there to find that. We'll just be going over the events of our games and our additions to the lore. Some spoilers ahead for official modules, but I won't be going into extreme detail here. 10,000 BDR, the origins of the Shadar-kai. This isn't really an event central to our games, but it is the oldest relevant event on our timeline. In the distant past, a powerful mortal elven queen attempted to ascend to godhood, but was betrayed by some of her wizards. Her capital city warped into the Shadowfell, and she became known as the Raven Queen, a formless pseudo-goddess trapped in her castle, now known as the Fortress of Memories. Her loyal subjects became the Shadar-kai, Shadow Elves, who she grants a form of immortality by reviving them whenever they die. Technically, Zidris, my character from our podcast, was created around this time, though he can't remember back nearly this far. 3100-ish BDR. Cuillin's character from our podcast is a changeling named Shafar, though he typically presents as a red dragonborn named Crassus. In ancient times, he was frozen in stasis by a now-dead civilization and lost at the bottom of the sea. 3000-ish BDR. The Warforged disappeared. One of Cuillin's characters in our Ghosts of Saltmarsh campaign was a Warforged named Delta, who does make a brief appearance on our podcast. His army was lost to the sea during an ancient war in eons past. If I had a nickel for every time Cuillin played a character lost in stasis at the bottom of the ocean, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. Over the next few thousand years, nothing particularly relevant to our games occurs, except for the birth of most of the characters. 1452 DR, Curse of Strahd. The first campaign we played in this world was actually barely in the world. Curse of Strahd is a campaign module where the party accidentally travels to Barovia, a small nation in a pocket dimension ruled by this guy, Count Strahd von Zarovich. The only way to get home is to kill him. We're not going to go through every little thing that happened here, but here's some things that are still relevant. John's character, Joram Apris, an Aasimar Forge cleric, would go on to become a very important leader with the Order of the Gauntlet, a multinational organization obsessed with keeping order in the world. Joram and the Order will come up more later, a lot. Cuillin's character, Jesse Mercer, a human gunslinger fighter, became an angel via a wish spell, and would later go on to have a child with a vampire. The child is Celise Bloodfallen, who will also come up more later. My wife's character, Aurora Zerso, an Aasimar champion fighter, had a pair of twins with Mordenkainen, who they rescued while in Barovia. Because Mordenkainen has spent so much time plane hopping, the children are born tieflings. They'll come up in another campaign. Brian's character, Mac Chestermouth, a Goliath devotion paladin, became one of Mordenkainen's enforcers and would travel with him for quite some time. Gerard's character, Humphrey McHumphrey, a human shadow monk, was corrupted by an evil power in Barovia and remained there at the end of the campaign. More on him in a minute. 1460 DR, Revenge of Humphrey. This brief homebrew campaign run by Gerard involved the old Strahd party falling back into Barovia. In their absence, Strahd had been revived, and he and Humphrey had been fighting in a war. The party defeats Humphrey, but finds out that Strahd is cursed to live forever, being revived in Barovia as part of some eternal torment that they can't undo. 1486 DR, Tomb of Annihilation. Tomb of Annihilation begins with a mysterious curse affecting the land. Anyone who has ever been revived by magic starts to waste away, including some of the world's greatest heroes. Joram, John's character from Strahd, with the support of the Order of the Gauntlet, puts together a team of younger adventurers to investigate a lead in the jungle nation of Chult. They thwart the plans of the Lich Acererak, but cannot find his phylactery to permanently kill him, so he gets away. Notable outcomes are as follows. The party spent some time traveling in a Skye ship, helmed by a man going by Edmund Jones, an archaeologist. He turns out to be a gold dragon in disguise and hints at the existence of other worlds. Celise, now an accomplished wizard played by Cuillin, gets caught in the intersection of 2 extra-dimensional spaces. This sends her to the astral plane for what is many years for her, but only moments for the party. She also takes ownership of a shield guardian called Vorn. She uses her insight on the astral plane to begin establishing vaults and prisons for other existential threats to reality. Justice Zerso, son of Aurora Zerso from Strahd, a tiefling vengeance paladin / shadow sorcerer played by me, distances himself from the Order of the Gauntlet and founds the Order of the Hammer, an elite group of monster hunters. Gerard's character, Raven Black, a literal reformed succubus, and my wife's character, Glory Zerso, Justice's sister, both become merchant princes in Port Nyanzaru after several of them died during the course of the campaign. Spring 1493 DR, Ghosts of Saltmarsh. Ghosts of Saltmarsh is technically a campaign that is supposed to take place in Greyhawk, but we decided to insert it into our version of the Sword Coast, somewhere between Baldur's Gate and Waterdeep. Most notable in this campaign is its ending. Our party traveled to an island at the request of the Order of the Gauntlet to halt the creation of a large force of undead. It was discovered that the undead were being created by a machine reminiscent of something from Frankenstein. With the cabal of evildoers running the production defeated, the strange device fell into the hands of the Order of the Gauntlet, who would use it to secretly create an army of undead soldiers. They claim for good. Summer 1493 DR the same year. The Crystal Islands Curse. In this short homebrew campaign, I told the story of the island of Arkheim, a small mining colony many miles off the coast of Waterdeep. The inhabitants of the island were plagued by strange mutations and roving undead. The party runs into Justice Zerso, who had tried to solve things on his own, but fell victim to a mysterious disease. They cure him, and he goes to get Order reinforcements. The party eventually discovered the source of the dark magic was a massive radioactive crystal at the island's center. Undead had amalgamated around the crystal, which was acting as a sort of beacon to a massive alien monster. Destroying the beacon sends the monster back into the stars, and saves the day. John's character, Order Inquisitor Edward Johnson, a human battlesmith artificer, will come up later. Summer 1494 DR. Baldur's Gate, Descent into Avernus. This campaign begins with the disappearance of the city of Elturel, and the quest to return it to the world. The party eventually roots out a cult in Baldur's Gate and learns that Elturel has been plane shifted into Avernus, the first layer of the Nine Hells, and the battleground of the Blood War, the eternal struggle between devils and demons. They briefly travel to Candlekeep to ask to be teleported there, and then spend the next few weeks in Hell. They travel around in a soul-powered metal vehicle, briefly get help from Mordenkainen, and find the sword of a fallen angel. They eventually manage to return Elturel to the material plane. Other notable outcomes are John's character, Roland Darkfire, a dark elf bard / paladin, comes into ownership of the Sword of Zariel, and heads into the Underdark to bring justice to the leaders of Lolth's cult. Gerard's character, Morkior Venkelbottom Jr., a high elf artillerist artificer, returns to Candlekeep to attempt to replicate the engines that the infernal war machines used, except not powered by souls. Morkior, along with Brian's character, Drage Dorn, a copper dragonborn rogue who runs a museum, make appearances on our podcast. Winter 1494 DR the same year. Icewind Dale, Prime of the Frost Maiden. This campaign involves stopping a mad demigoddess of winter from permanently freezing a region with thousands of people in ice. John's character from the Crystal Island Curse, Inquisitor Johnson, puts together a team of local adventurers to investigate some leads and eventually take on the goddess directly. After growing much more powerful, they do in fact defeat her. Notable moments are as follows. The party finds a crashed Nautiloid, a mind flayer ship, piloted by rather friendly gnomish mind flayers. They help them repair their ship and travel in the Nautiloid for the majority of the adventure. They befriend Gek, a local kobold, and train him as a sidekick. Gek goes on to become a renowned weaponsmith. Gek makes an appearance on our podcast along with his good friend Vanya Dekan, a wood elf rogue played in this campaign by Alex H. My character, Dragonborn Ranger and bounty hunter Ven Ronan, goes on to join Justice Zerso with the Order of the Hammer. Colin's character, Yorick Glacierfist, the Goliath monk, dies, but Inquisitor Johnson calls in a favor from Colin's old character, Celise, to revive him. Everybody gets one. Brian's character, Maka Rosso, the human barbarian, along with Yorick, become bound to Icewind Dale as its new guardians, as part of a ritual to draw out the evil goddess and to restore the sun with an artifact of Lathander, the god of light. 1505 DR, Candlekeep Mysteries. And that brings us to the spring of 1505, where our podcast begins with Candlekeep Mysteries, before breaking off into a more homebrewed campaign. So, you're all caught up now. I'll be in the comments answering any questions you might have, but other than that, that should be about it. Make sure you're subscribed to see our future shenanigans, and we'll see you soon.